Hi everyone, welcome to the sculpting of Edinho. This is a very special project for me. A while ago I contacted Edinho to ask him about PV clay. It's very similar to Bozzy, well it used to be called Bozzy, but it's obviously a slightly different version of the same thing. He was very kind. He did a video call with me and showed me his factory. He and his wife run it together on their own. They have no other employees. I was very impressed with how small the company is and how much they look after the community around them by making things like buttons and glasses, frames, things that are not really to do with you always think of I always think of polymer clay being to do with art, and these were things that were to do with fashion and just generally helping with things that might be necessary in life, like glasses, frames. So he also was very kind enough to send me some clay to try. So I thought, he showed me a gallery of things that people had sent him, polymer clay artists had sent him. Most of them were jewellery, and he didn't have a figure. So I thought it would be really great to sculpt him in his own clay. And so this is a very special project for those reasons. For me as well, it's really great to do a portrait that isn't a celebrity. I do love doing celebrities, but it's really nice when you're actually doing someone you know, and you can ask them for particular pictures of their face, and you can send them that figure once it's finished of them, of how you see them, and that's very special. It's very different to just doing a normal celebrity, even though I love that too. So I thought I would describe as best I can what PV clay feels like to me, for anyone who is interested in trying it. It is quite, when you get it in the brick, it is quite solid. So the first conditioning can be quite hard on your hands, but once it is mixed and conditioned, because I never use my clay straight from the block, you could really use the clay straight from the block, in which case it would probably be much easier, because you could just take pieces off and condition it just before you use them. For me, I always like to blend my own colors, and so I always add things to my clay. I always add some opaque white to stop any blemishes, and I often add color as well, just to slightly change perhaps the tone of the skin I want to use. So once you've mixed your clay for the figure you're going to use, it is soft and it stays that consistency for quite a long time. I would say a good number of weeks, if not a couple of months maybe. I haven't really done enough of a research on that, but so far definitely at least a month your clay will stay as you conditioned it. I have also found that you can't mix PV clay with another clay. So you can't mix PV clay with Fimo clay or Cernit or Kato or literally any other clay, because what you will get is a bit of a mushy mess. It gets very sticky and definitely can't be used, or you will find it very difficult to use it. If you just mix it with itself, if you keep to PV clay mixing with PV clay, the kind of clay you get is what I think is a very nice middle of the road clay. It's soft, so it's so soft that if you add it to, say, if you add a piece to what you're already sculpting, it is that soft that you can actually blend that piece into the piece you're sculpting with your fingers. You don't need to do any cross hatching or anything to try to get it mixed in, although I do use my tools, but you literally could use your fingers. It's also firm enough that it holds details, so it's not so squishy that you are fighting with it the whole time trying to keep the details that you've already sculpted. It holds details well, but it's not that firm that it's like a labor to try and use it and to try and blend it into itself, which some clays can be. It does bake at a slightly higher temperature, so it's 130 degrees Celsius. It comes out very strong when it is baked. So all in all, oh, and apart from that, which obviously has nothing to do with the actual sculpting process, but it's just a very nice thing, it smells amazing. It has a lovely perfume, which no other clay does have. It's very subtle, so it doesn't overpower your room when you're using it, but it's just really nice to have that very unclay smell. It's a very nice perfume smell. So all in all, I really do enjoy using it, and I had so much fun making this particular project and then posting it to Edinho. I sculpted all of his clothes. I sculpted myself. I didn't use any fabric. I do prefer to sculpt clothing than to use fabric, simply because I'm not very good at fabric art at this point in my experience of sculpting. I also just like the way that clay makes fabric look heavy. So if you use a small amount of fabric, it's harder to make that fabric look like it has weight. Whereas if you use clay, you can make it look like it's heavy, or you can make it look like it's light. I would say that if you're sculpting something that's meant to be very light, very sheer, then perhaps fabric is the best thing to use. But for something like what I was doing here, which was jeans and a shirt, definitely I will always go to using clay rather than fabric. You can mold it to the body, you can put creases where you want them, and the whole time I was making this, I was looking at a reference photograph of him and looking at the clothing as well. Once I had sculpted the whole of the clothing, I then painted on all the details. For his hair, I decided to sculpt his hair, which is a bit different for me. Usually I use fibers like viscose or an animal fiber. I always choose my animal fibers from an ethical source, so the animals are not killed. They live on a farm, and it's called Newmore Barn, and you get to see pictures of the animals, and you get a little card on who donated the fibers to you. But in this case, I did not use fibers. I used clay to do his hair. Because his hair is so short, I thought clay would be a much nicer thing to use, because you can make it look close to the head, where, with such short fibers, they would stick out a bit and it just wouldn't look very neat. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thank you so much, Edinho, for giving me the opportunity to do this. It was a lovely project.